Welcome back to episode 128 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm here as always with Adam.
Hello.
And Cam.
Hello.
And we're a group of auto-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
That is the plan. And that's why next weekend we are hosting the DWC organization.
Hell yeah. The first inaugural DWC organizational coming at you.
To help you get better at Magic.
It's a tournament that we're organizing, hosted on MTG Arena.
Sunday, May 12th, noon Eastern Standard Time. Standard best of 3 arena tournament. Swiss pairings, patrons only. If you are not a patron yet, you can become one at patreon.com/DWC Podcast. For the low cost of $1, you can get yourself into this tournament and maybe win a box of War of the Spark.
Yeah, second place prize is also pretty sweet in my opinion. You can pick a play set of Shocklands from your choice from RNA or guilds. So one of the recent Shocklands, because we don't want to buy like and old Steam events.
Third and fourth place prize could also be sweet. We don't know.
We
it's
have
an organizational, but that's to be determined.
We'll decide it soon.
Yeah, we organized. That's to be determined. It's based on attendance. For third and fourth, going to be based on attendance for prizing. But no matter what, first place is a box of War of the Spark. We'll mail it to you. No matter where you are in the world, we don't care. We'll ship you a box.
But yeah, this is going to be a sweet, fun little tournament that we're going to do. Hopefully, we'll do more of them in the future. But yeah, you yourself could win a box of War of the Spark just by playing an arena tournament from your home. And all you have to do to enter is be a patron of the DWC Podcast.
Free entry to all patrons.
Literally $1.
Yeah.
And you can get in.
Also, of note, you also have to make a Smash GG account. Check our Facebook and our Twitter for the page information to sign up for the tournament. As far as the technical things, I'm going to run the tournament, so you'll have to message me your deck list the evening before the tournament begins. So we have all the deck lists, but we have all the rules for it. You know, there's no intentional draws. You can't just loop Nexus with no win condition kind of thing. Like
any questions, you can always send us a message on our Facebook or Twitter page, or just in our Discord if you're already a patron.
Yeah, jump in the Discord. It's pretty sweet. It's been like popping off a lot lately, which is fun. Obviously, at the beginning of a new set, all sorts of brews, all sorts of conversation. Speaking of brews, there's a lot going on in both the standard and modern world. We'll get to standard in a bit, but I love our show notes here.
Yeah. So this is a double episode week, seeing as we missed one last week, and we wanted to get the deck dump in before the set was released in paper, which is, we're recording on Friday. The set comes out today. So
yeah, we're about 12 hours late.
Yeah. But in the 5 days between episodes this week, Modern broke. I don't know if everyone is aware, but a Allosaurus Grizzlebrand Neoform deck has popped up on Magic Online that consistently wins on turn 1 or turn 2, and it's not a good look.
So the deck is it's turn 1 or turn 2. It's playing like Chancellor of the Tangle and a bunch of other green cards so that it can like exile 2 green cards to put Allosaurus into play, and then with extra mana on turn 1, either from Chancellor of the Tangle or on turn 2, it neoforms. Allosaurus Rider is 7 CMC, so you can go get your Grizzlebrand. Then it just Nourishing Shoals away the huge green guys that it draws off Grizzlebrand. Simian Spirit Guides in some, I think, not Sulfuric Vortex.
So there's a couple ways you can win. Some decks are playing Lightning Storm.
Yeah.
And some of them are playing Lab Maniac.
Oh, yeah.
You just Nourishing Shoal through your whole deck with Grizzlebrand.
Yeah, you just draw your whole deck.
Yeah, you either Lab Maniac or just throw all your lands at them.
Yeah, and like Wild Cantor, all these cards that are just these like free mana cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Play Summoner packs, so it can always like find ways to combo. It's really obnoxious.
Yeah, and it's actually surprisingly consistent with turn 1 and turn 2 kills.
Yep.
So
odds this is banned within the next ban space. At the next ban announcement in like a month.
I would say it's probably floating around 100%.
Yeah, this deck is not long for this world. If you're looking to collect some free tickets on Moto or just donk on some people for some free whatever, store credit or whatever, if you want to be that guy.
If you want to play some Yu-Gi-Oh! In your Magic the Gathering safe space, this might be the deck for you.
Yeah, it's probably not long for this world.
This deck just, like, it really emphasizes the real only issue that they've ever had designing cards, which is reduced cost mechanics.
Yeah.
Allosaurus, you can exile 2 cards from your hand to cast it. You can cast it for quote-unquote free.
Yeah.
Chancellor of the Tangle is like a free mana. Neoform is an upgrade on mana. Simian Spirit Guide, free mana. Manamorphose. Free colors of mana in a card. Summoner's Pact. That's free.
What I do what I will say though, what I do love about this deck is what's the name of that worm? Auto Thun Worm, the 15 mana.
A Tochin Worm or whatever. Yeah, I remember
it's
that.
Finally getting its day in the sun.
Yeah, dude. That's from Return to Ravnica, right?
It's from the original
the original
Ravnica.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. The 15 mana, 9/14 Convoke Trample Worm.
Yeah, dude, you got a Nourishing Shoal, that bad boy.
Finally getting its day in the sun.
Yeah, that's 14 cards you can draw, and say you'll still be at 1 life.
That's a lot of cards, but yeah, I mean, I've seen a bunch of streamers playing this deck this week, and it is rough. Let me tell you.
It's the deck Modern deserves. I should say. Legacy's killed 1 turn. Just everyone dies on turn 1.
Yeah.
I was watching
Modern just fair, like everyone just play it like it's diverse. Yeah.
I was watching a YouTube video of a guy playing this deck, and his opponent turn 1 Faithless Looting pitches 2 lands, and he's like, oh well, this guy's on some fair deck. Starts comboing on turn 2, gets his Gristlebrand out, draws 7 cards, draws 7 more, finds a Nourishing Shoal, draws 7 more, doesn't have any more Nourishing Souls, so he can't draw any more cards, but puts in the enchantment that lets you discard lands. Counts up, he's like, oh, we've got 22 damage, starts discarding, and then his opponent just Nourishing Shoals a World Spine Worm. He was on Gristlebrand, and he's like, oh, we're dead. I packed this turn.
Oh yeah, that's really good. I thought you were going to say he just didn't have enough lands for Lightning Storm, and just got by the guy just discarding land.
His opponent was just on Gristlebrand and he didn't know it, and just in response to the last land or a land where he couldn't die, just Nourishing Shoals.
That's so good.
That's actually amazing.
Oh man.
Yeah, Nourishing Shoal just it's so funny, man. That's a card that when it was printed, if anyone had ever thought this card is going to see so much play only in the most unfair decks imaginable. You know what I mean? You'd be like, what? It's literally just a green gain life card.
All the Shoals, yeah. Isn't Blazing Shoal banned because of Infect or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just turned you off a bit, right? Just play Glistener Elf. Next turn, you're just dead. It's just Blazing Shoal. Oh, yeah, right.
Just playing some fair, honest Magic.
Yeah, more free cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. But
well, no, you have to exit card disadvantage. You have to exile a card from your hand.
Sure, but
it's just bad.
Yeah, just those new Phyrexia cards, they're just bad. You have to pay life.
It's just actually Yu-Gi-Oh! There's no mana in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you have to sack multiple creatures to cast new ones. It's exiling cards from your hand.
I don't know anything about that game, thankfully.
Sorry, not creatures. Monsters. Blue Eyes is 9-star? You got to sack 2 other monsters?
Dude, I don't know.
I think that's right.
I don't know how many stars.
Rip Modern for now, but imagine when is the ban announcement?
I don't even know.
They're not going to emergency ban it. I don't think. No, there's no way.
So Adam's theory, as you were saying earlier, is that they let it wreck a paper tournament and they ban it.
Yeah.
I would love to
even
see
if
that.
it's just the SCG Classic this weekend and it's not on coverage, but 6 of the decks, the top 8 decks are just this. But in paper, everything in Modern moves so slow that I actually don't think that happens yet. I think that this, it wrecks a paper tournament first and then it gets banned.
Mm-hmm.
More and more people have to pick this up, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Who knows? They could also just be yeah, this is nonsense.
If anyone out there is a magician or has big hands and want to be the next person that palms 7 and smashes a Modern tournament, here's a deck for you.
The Steven Speck strategy.
If you want to just go out in a blaze of cheat and glory.
I don't think you need to. This deck's basically just cheating by registering it.
Yeah, true.
It obviously loses a little bit without the London Mulligan, but still pretty good.
Yeah, it's really obnoxious.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving on to lighter topics.
Yeah, the formats that we broke here in Standard. This is the classic DWC deck dump week. So
War of the Spark edition.
Emphasizing on the decks part of our deck tournaments and stories.
So like we do with every deck dump, we've got all of them posted on our Twitter and Facebook pages, also on our Patreon page. So you can follow along with our deck lists.
They'll also be posted in the Discord for deck lists as well. So
absolutely. So we're just going to go through list by list, talk about the things we like about it, explain certain card choices, and get you all set up for a new Standard here.
Yeah, what to play, especially because the organizational's coming around the corner, so you can consider some of these options, and we'll talk about the matchups, what the matchups look like, how to sideboard. Also, preemptively, I want to say, if you have any questions about sideboard guides in general, I'm totally happy to respond. If you message me, I prefer on Discord. If you message me asking me for sort of what's going on, like I'm going to prioritize responding to patrons, obviously. So if you are curious about sideboard notes or like what could be changed or improved, I'm happy to answer. But I'll respond on Facebook and everything else, or email too. So
right on. So kicking things off with, I don't know, maybe the best deck in the format.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think this deck is degenerately, horribly broken now.
This is Adam's take on Blue-Green Nexus.
Yeah, so I built a few decks that actually will come up as sort of jokes. Okay, so it's a long story. Our friend Benson, who's our social media manager, always wants to play I guess what Cam would refer to as Yu-Gi-Oh decks. He always wants to play unfair linear combo decks, like Manaless Dredge and everything in Legacy.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Well, let's run through some of his recent deck choices in formats past. Manaless Dredge in Legacy, Dredge in Modern, Hollow One in Modern when it was new, Vengevine in Modern when it was new. He played Godpharaoh's Gift.
Oh, GPG in Standard.
In Standard. He's on the Neoform deck in Modern now, and he likes playing Nexus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's that
So-
guy. He's that style,
style,
player. Yeah. And so he was saying, I want the best deck. I'm playing in the MCQs. Because there's one in Montreal, one in Ottawa for us, and I really want to play. And I was like, all right. Well, he kept talking about like guys I really think Nexus is busted, and usually I ignore him. But I thought, okay, I'll try and play it. And then I made a bunch of changes and kind of ignored his list and played a bunch with it. And then I kept winning a ton. And I think I was maybe like plat 4 that day, like at the end of the month. I just hadn't been playing Standard much because at the end of the semester I've been really busy. And I didn't realize it was also the last day of the month. So it was like really hilarious, like convenience.
Yeah.
And I started playing that day. And then all of a sudden I made a few changes as I kept playing throughout the day. And I kept posting in this chat like, well, I'm like 13-0, like, I'm now like Diamond 3, like, you know what I mean? And then like 5 hours later, I'm like, man, Mythic, by the way, Benson. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know what happened, but I just couldn't lose. And the real thing with this deck, like everybody probably doesn't want to hear us talk about Nexus, but the real takeaway here is that Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, is just
Busto.
Yeah, Busto. The card is just so ungodly good in this deck.
It does everything you want. It protects you from the hate people bring in against you. It finds your combo pieces, and it brings back your combo pieces that have been dealt with.
Right. That people, so many times I've had people mortify a Wilderness Reclamation. I'm like, okay.
The fact that Tamiyo and this archetype met each other in this Standard makes me believe in soulmates.
It's crazy. Like she does so much. Yeah, the amount of people who thought Azure you, and you're just like, okay. Yeah, you know my hand. And then they just lose because of Tamiyo. That actually enchantment destruction doesn't work because of her. Like you have to clock you so fast. If you just plus and start digging with her and they have a small board presence, they're not killing her. Like she goes up to 6 loyalty.
Yeah.
If you have the nut start of Growth Spiral, if you're on the play and you go turn 2 Growth Spiral into turn 3 Tamiyo and just plus and start searching for either Search for Esconta or Wilderness Reclamation off of her, game over. Of note, name a more iconic duo, flipping my Search for Esconta and Tamiyo. Right? Like it just, she does everything. Like, because normally Search is something you want to flip as fast as possible in this deck, and she can do it instantly.
Yeah.
She's unbelievable. And so one of the weird things in this deck list that I'm going to have to justify, I know, to everyone who asks me about it, is the fact that I'm playing 3 Nexus of Fate, not 4.
Yeah.
This is like sacrilege to most people, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blue-green Nexus of Fate combo deck, but you're not playing 4 Nexus of Fate.
Right, but it's actually a Search for Esconta Wilderness Reclamation combo deck. Those are the 4. If you're not playing 4 Search and 4 Wilderness, you're crazy. And a lot of people, for a long time, weren't playing 4 Search for Esconta.
Yeah, that is one card that people usually trim on because it's legendary, but like, it doesn't actually matter in this deck.
Correct. And you just, it's so much more important than finding Nexus is flipping Search. And so I noticed that with the addition of, so originally I had 4 Nexus, 3 Tamiyo, and I noticed that I was mulling a lot of hands when I was doing that run where I was trying to finish the month as Mythic, and I was playing a ton, and I realized I was mulling so many hands with just 2 or 3 Nexus in them, and 1 would have been fine. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go up to 4 Tameo because it's nuts and try 3 Nexus because I realized, but when you plus Tameo and you mill so much of your deck, by the time you start comboing off, the old versions would have like 45 cards left in their deck still, but now you have 29 or 30. And so the odds are actually better than they used to be, and you're not going to whiff. And Tameo lets you make sure that when you mill your second Wilderness Reclamation, you can put that into play easily. Like you just create so much more velocity with this deck that I just never was an issue, and I mulled so many less hands because of it.
Yeah.
And so it's just never been an issue. And I had you guys play the same list, and you guys said the same thing, that you never had a problem.
Yeah, exactly. I've been totally fine with 3 Nexus of Fate. I've literally, when I've been looking for one, I've never not found it. Their deck's just too good at finding Nexus of Fate.
It just gets small so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, another couple pickups this deck got from the new set, Commence the Endgame. Just another uncounterable win condition in the main deck.
Yeah. Yeah, they can kill they can kill your amass creature, but yeah, who cares? They just get it back
up with Tameo. Yeah. And then Blast Zone as well, which just helps you deal with some problem permanents that the deck normally would have a lot of trouble with. Obviously, natural weakness to this deck are aggro decks, and mono white. Just everything in their deck dies to a Blast Zone.
Yeah, mono blue. A deck that is
blue,
just the worst matchup for you, and it's not close the worst matchup. I used to have Crawl Harpooners in the sideboard, and you'll note when looking at this deck list that they're not there anymore because the matchup is so bad that I just was like, you know what? The control matchup can already be very close due to a few problematic cards like the new Teferi 3, which is incredibly good against you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to commit to winning the matchups that I have a fair chance at, which is something that we've actually been proponents of in the past on the podcast. Is like, look, if you have a matchup that you're only 5% to win, don't dedicate your sideboard to it. Make sure you shore up the things that you actually have a chance at winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So looking at the sideboard now, the 3 Spell Pierce is just kind of best card in the sideboard, would you say?
Yeah, I've had people, so nobody plays it, right? Like no lists play Spell Pierce.
And no one plays around it because of that.
And it's the best card in the sideboard. It's so good that I've given my list to numerous people. And one of those people, our friend LP, messaged me and said, he actually went up to 4 Spell Pierce after playing your list because you're right. It's the best card out of the sideboard and it's not close because it stops Teferi 3, it stops Thought Erasure, it stops on curve, it can deal with all the things you really are scared of.
On the draw, you can counter your opponent's search for his Canna.
Yep.
And no one plays around it. You can shock in a blue land and they'll still just play it.
Because they think you're going to opt.
Yeah.
It's the best card in the sideboard. It comes in against the mirror, against control decks, against tons of actually mono red too. You bring in some copies because negate is too slow. Negate costs too much mana to both proactively, do your game plan of playing search or wilderness and have negate up and not have to shock yourself to do so. This happens constantly when you play the deck that you might have a search you can play and then you'd have to shock yourself for the 4th mana to negate. Well, now we just Spell Pierce.
Yeah. Have you ever Spell Pierced your opponent's turn to light up the stage?
Yep.
When you're on the draw?
Yep.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, how good did it feel?
It feels pretty
Did you win that game?
good. Hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I Spell Pierced the Liliana Dreadhorde General or whatever earlier today with a different blue-green deck, but which we'll get to actually. But man, when you Spell Pierce like a Teferi, it's indescribable how good it feels.
Mm-hmm. And, so looking at the sideboard and talking about some of the deck's problem, I guess matchups or problem cards for the deck, the new Teferi 3, Teferi Time Raveler absolutely destroys you. Your Wilderness Reclamations have 0 text on them.
Yeah.
Your deck just cannot function if that card is in play.
Yeah.
So you need answers to that card, which... looking at this sideboard, you have a card like Blink of the Eye and Callous Dismissal. You want to talk a little bit about Callous Dismissal and why it's there?
Okay, so yeah, Callous Dismissal is there because it could just be another Blink of the Eye, right? But the thing is, I really want my sideboard cards. The more and more I played this deck, I played a ton of matches. I think I sat down and played like 14 hours that day of just nonstop, just jamming matches with this deck.
It's a lot of turns.
Yeah, I took a lot of turns that day. I think my opponent took about 5. I took 13 hours worth of turns. And one of the things I wanted out of my sideboard was something that was flexible, that could bounce Teferi 3, bounce, I don't know, something else even, who knows, like flexible, but more importantly, that I could bring it in other matchups. Like 100% knew that it was there for Teferi 3. I'm like, I really want to quit losing to this card, so I'm going to have multiple cards on my sideboard to answer it. That's another thing Murmuring Mystic can theoretically do, is it creates multiple bodies, so you can chip at Planeswalkers, which is important against that card. But Teferi 3 is just incredibly oppressive. It's the best card against you, and it's not close. It's the only card that you basically can't beat. And so my sideboard has multiple cards to deal with it. And Callous Dismissal, however, unlike Blink of the Eye, will also come in against green-red. Because against decks like green-red, you can bounce something and you get a chump blocker out of the 1/1, which if you have played this deck a lot and you play against something like green-red, or you're a green-red player, you'll notice that whenever the Nexus games win or lose, it's always by like a turn. You were like, oh, if I could have fogged for one more turn, I would have won. Or, you know, I just beat him in time if you're the green-red player. And Callous Dismissal was one of the cards that I would start bringing in against green-red, because just bouncing their Phoenix and then creating a 1/1 blocker on the ground bought me so much time. Mm-hmm. So Callous Dismissal is one of the cards in the sideboard that's unusual, but was, really useful. The other thing is I have the 4th Root Snare in the board, not the main. The reason for this being that I just didn't play against mono white that much. You know, Gideon Blackblade wasn't beating me down that often. And so I thought it's okay because, you know, bring it in against mono white post board, the 4th one, and you just keep looping them with Tamiyo. Mono white can't win, so it's fine.
Yeah.
You only need to find one now that you have Tamiyo as well. It's not like before where you need to just have a bunch of Root Snares. Now you can just like, well, I have mana, I don't know, play Tamiyo minus, pick up a Root Snare, I'll figure out the rest later against mono white, right?
Yeah.
Whereas against mono red, like Root Snare is not good enough actually. Like you bring in the 4th against mono red, but it
doesn't stop those burn spells.
Exactly. Spell Pierce is actually better. So that's basically my whole sort of approach to this sideboard. The one card, if you want to change something, is the Narset's Reversal is like insane in the mirrors, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just a complete mirror breaker. But
outside of that, it's just
not good.
Yeah.
Outside of that.
I have a question about Spell Pierce. What's your conversion rate on casting Spell Pierce to getting your opponent to emote nice?
Oh, lots actually. Yeah, that happened to you too. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Every time you Spell Pierce, it's like 75% that your opponent hits you with a nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. People like are either actually stoked or like rankled that they got Spell Pierced. Like they're just pissed.
Yeah. Another big change from this deck from the last format is most decks are now playing just one win condition in the main deck.
Yeah.
Whereas before they'd play like 2 Hydroid Krasis. Now, like we're playing 1 Krasis, 1 Commence the Endgame. I've seen a lot of decks just playing a Commence the Endgame in the main deck, which all of that's totally fine.
Yeah, do whatever you want. I just liked having the 1 Krasis as just a body against like green-red. It was just nice to have. And I have them in the sideboard for that and for grindy mid-range matchups that might Thought Erasure my win condition if it's accidentally in my opener.
Yeah, and if you're picking up this deck for the first time, one thing you'll quickly realize is, you know, 9.5 times out of 10, you don't actually ever have to kill your opponent. You flip a Search for Azcanta with a Wilderness Reclamation in play, and your opponents concede.
It's a lot of the times for me, it was when I played the 2nd Wilderness Reclamation with a Search flip, because then you're just seeing way too much.
Especially on Arena, too. Like, if you take 2 turns in a row with a Nexus of Fate, people don't want to sit through that, and they'll just concede.
Yeah.
And so, really, like, trimming down on win conditions isn't a bad choice, because you almost never actually have to kill your opponent with something.
Yeah. I wish. Most people I found made me kill them.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but you kill them really fast. Like
I don't actually think I've ever had to actually kill somebody.
Yeah.
People always concede.
Well, a lot of it was they'd wait to see that I had a win condition, like a way to win, and then once I showed it, they'd concede. So
yeah, most times for me, it's I flip that Search with a Reclamation, they concede, or it's like 2 or 3 turns in a row I've taken, and people are like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Once they see that it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
Like there's so few cards in your library that you will just do this for as long as you want until they die.
So the thing with this deck is like, you just aggressively play Tamiyo to aggressively find your 2 combo pieces of Wilderness and Search. So that's the takeaway. But
exactly.
Talk quite a bit about this deck. But
yeah. So moving on to the next list, we have another Reclamation.
Yeah. Speaking of Teferi 3, Time Raveler.
Yeah, this is the Mirror Buster.
So Adam was having a bunch of success with Blue-Green Nexus. So I took his list and was playing it to try and see. And I was having medium results. My mono-red opponents are really lucky, whatever. Maybe. And also I just picked it up. So like another note is there's kind of a timing / cadence to the deck that you pick up that like it'll seem kind of challenging at first. And then all of a sudden you kind of clue into like what you need to be worrying about on each turn, and then it becomes extremely powerful. But because I was having medium results with blue-green, I wanted to try a Bant version because I like knew that Time Raveler was so good, and because I lost to it in the mirror. I was playing blue-green, and they had it.
I actually lost to the mirror this deck a bunch of times.
I started playing Bant and just like 5-0'd through my first standard thing, like 5-1 through the next, just like crushing people. And I like, personally, I'd like this list more just because, I don't know, it's got more colors. But because of like Time Raveler, that card is so flexible. It helps in so many matchups. Like Adam was talking about Callous Dismissal, how it can like deal with problem permanents. So does Teferi. It draws cards. It's annoying against control. It's almost borderline unbeatable in the mirror. And so the only real white cards that are added to this list are 3 Teferi Time Raveler and 2 Teferi Hero of Dominaria. Again, just a powerful threat that you can slam, a catch-all answer to problematic permanents that your opponent might have.
Just another win condition as well.
Yeah. And it's down on, there's no counter magic main because it's got these sort of catch-all answers.
And yeah, who needs counter magic when your opponents can't like...
We need counter magic. In the sideboard, there's 4 Dovin's Veto. That card is the other appeal to white. That card, again, just turns so many matchups on its head. The fact that, like, yeah, your opponent just, doesn't matter how much counter magic they have, they can't resolve threats. So you get the time needed to combo. But yeah, I like this version.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, a lot of games when you're playing blue-green Nexus, or when I was playing it, you kind of have to like think like, okay, I have 4 mana. I want to jam this Reclamation. If it resolved, I can untap my lands, and like then I have counter magic up, or like I'm in a good spot. I've developed a thing, and I can still interact. But if it gets countered, I just sort of tapped out on 4, and my opponent can do whatever. If you have a Teferi in play, they can't do anything. You get to play your Reclamation and untap your lands. So I don't know. And well, I mean, yeah, they just can't do anything on your turn. You get to just combo without having to worry. So
Yeah.
I've liked this version.
Yeah, Teferi 3 is just like a safety valve of, well, okay, I win.
Yeah.
Also, I had said this, I think maybe on the pre-show or before we started recording, like, it also, there are matchups where green-red has slower draws where they just play a turn 2, I don't know, Growth Chamber Guardian or a Curl Harpooner on turn 2, and you just play a Teferi 3 and bounce it, and they have no board, and you're at 20, and you're going into your 4th turn at 20. When you're a Nexus deck and that's the case, this game is over. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
They cannot kill you fast enough. So that Teferi 3 can buy that kind of time is phenomenal. And on top of that, you still have fogs. So yeah, Teferi 3 is a huge, huge draw. It helps in a lot of matchups.
Mm-hmm. I've been very, very impressed with that card.
It's nuts.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very good.
Also, yeah, even just like you're talking about bouncing 2 drops, playing against control or playing the mirror, and you're on the play, and they cast a Search for Azcanta on turn 2, and so they're tapped out. You just get to play your Teferi and bounce their search.
It bounces enchantments too.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's, yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, another thing, I'm not sure if Adam's list had this, I didn't count, but I went up to 26 lands in this list because of colors, and also because I found that, like, you're trying to Growth Spiral. For Growth Spiral to be most effective, you need a lot of lands in hand. And there were games where, like, I was missing land drops in, I think, a 24 or 25 land blue-green version, and I just like that happens less in this.
Yeah, I almost went up to a 26 with a Simic Guildgate. I had thought about it, and if you were to change something from the blue-green main deck, I would probably just cut the Hydrate Crisis and go up to the 26 land. So
no, that's another thing about this banned version. It's got technically 4 win cons in it, which is a lot for Nexus. It's got to commence we cut the Hydrate Crisis. Okay, it's got 3. So it's got to commence the end game, but your Teferis are also still win cons. You can still, like,
Teferi Log, yeah.
Teferi Emblem, exile all their permanents, and then let them have turns to deck themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can do it.
You're so benevolent.
Yeah.
And most Nexus versions are playing Ops. I went with 4 Anticipate instead of Ops, just, again, sort of as a mana consideration, because you kind of want to play a tap shock. You don't have as much untapped blue on turn 1. And without, as Adam pointed out, without counter, or maybe it's in the pre-show, without counter magic, Anticipate lets you dig for sort of your, like, a Teferi if you need to answer something that resolved.
Makes sense to me. Moving on to one of the sweeter lists in our deck dump.
Another
one we
combo.
actually alluded to in our episode earlier this week. This is Abzan Bolus's Citadel.
Yeah, taking a note from what broke Modern and trying to cast spells for free.
Dude, let me tell you, casting spells for free, you love it.
Yeah, we
Love
talked
to see
about
it.
the sort of genesis of this deck, of these 2 decks, last episode, where Adam as an experiment, did a bug version, and then I kind of made it a bit more mid-range and tried a Sorin Abzan version. And this is where it ended up. It's got the engine of the Explore package, the 12 cards, Branch Walkers, Jade Lights, and Wild Growth Walkers. Llanowar Elves just for velocity and because that card's very good. And Llanowar Elves lets you, like, we're only playing 24 lands, but we have 6 drops that we need to cast, so it helps a lot. And then it's a bit more mid-rangey. It's got some answers in 2 Mortify, 3 Chupacabra, some Contempts, just sort of as you're in the midpoint of the game, you can deal with permanents. The Contempts are also very good at, like, you need a way to get rid of Vivian, because if your opponent has a Vivian on board and your Bolas' Citadel isn't nuts the turn you play it, they kill it, and then you're behind. And then it got Eternal Oketra just because it's very good in some matchups. It goes over the top sometimes. And Sorin to sort of piece everything together as like this buyback engine for your Explore package that helps your Citadels keep going, gains life for your Citadels.
Yeah, it clears the top of your deck when you rebuy Explore guys. If there's a land on top, so you can keep popping off with your Citadel.
Yeah, that's my advice for playing this deck is like almost activate, like use your Sorin activation sparingly. Like you want to play most of your turn until you realize exactly, like you'll know when you should have used it. Because like sometimes it's right to go to combat and your opponent like blocks your Ravenous Chupacabra and then you minus Sorin and kill something like that you wouldn't have been able to kill. Or if you're casting things with Bolas' Citadel, you like wait until you get stuck with a land on top. Then you minus Sorin on an Explorer creature to clear the land. Like it's very flexible in how it interacts with the rest of the deck. It's very good.
Yeah, also if your creatures just live against mono red and you just slam a Sorin, the game just ends, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it can play a lot. It also keeps like planeswalkers in check. Yeah,
it does a lot in this deck because, you know, you do have to pay life to cast the spells from Citadel, and Sorin just giving everything you have lifelink just, you know, is that glue that holds the whole deck together.
Yeah, it's really good. This version is better than the initial one that we came up with, but the initial one has like, it's still fine.
Also, like, kind of, this is a theme that I've been noticing of like, we have a bunch of stories about people not reading Tamiyo's static ability properly. It's like all these new walkers, it seems like a lot of opponents aren't interacting with them properly or not realizing how they could interact. I've played like a turn 4 Sorin against control, plus it to 6. Next turn, go to cast like God Eternal Oketra. They counter it. All right, -5. Bring this Oketra back your turn. Like,
yeah, no, it happens a lot. Yeah, Sorin is very powerful for that. Like it rebuys a lot. Yeah, we talked about this on our spoiler episode. It doesn't seem like he's that good, but in this deck, yeah, like you said, he's just a glue that we've all played this deck quite a bit, I think, actually, right? Like we all played some matches with it. And I think we all did quite well with it.
I always liked it. It was fun.
Yeah, the only matchup that like has felt hard is normal bug midrange. Because their Vivians can answer your Citadels. They have hostage takers, which are kind of annoying because it like takes apart your Wild Growth Walker thing. You can also take your Citadel. And like their Vivian finds their card advantage piece in Hydroid Crisis. So like if their Vivian kills your Citadel and then finds a Crisis, it has disabled your card advantage and found theirs, and like you can fall behind. But at the same time, if they kind of like don't have a good start early, sometimes they struggle to answer a Sorin and just everything they kill comes back. So that matchup's like pretty 50-50. It's one that I've been thinking about. It's why there's a Sorcerer Spyglass in the sideboard. I actually don't bring in Vivian against them anymore because Vivian can like accidentally bottom your Citadels. And I want to Spyglass naming Vivian, so I don't bring mine in. Otherwise, the sideboard's like pretty normal. Crawl Harpooner for, you know, Flyers, Thief of Sanities, you know, your normal Duress, some extra cast downs for like red and such. Davriel is very good, as we talked about last episode, just anywhere you don't want your opponent to have cards.
Which is always.
Yeah, and a card that no one plays around because you're like a creature deck and your mana looks like trash is Kaya's Wrath. You get to just, like, it's actually pretty consistent that you can Wrath on 4 and people just dump their hand against you.
Yeah. Yeah, Davriel is a card that I think shows up in every single one of the lists we have that is a black, has black mana in it in the sideboard. Davriel is so good when combined with other discard that it's just the extra discard spells and then puts them in the rack.
Yeah, a very solid post-board plan versus a lot of decks for sure. This next list we have here is kind of an updated version of the original Citadel deck.
What's the word? The progenitor? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
It's the progenitor of the previous.
So this is Bug Citadel. Like I mentioned, a little different than the original list, but we think this is probably a better build.
The original list, I was really trying to go off. Like I played Growth Spirals and Tatiovas. I was trying to ramp to and pop off with Citadel as fast as possible with not imagining any interaction from my opponent as a thought experiment. And then I just the version that I ended up settling on was just more on a rampy, I still want to play Hydro Crisis, even though it isn't good with Citadel. It's literally just terrible. But, you have Find Finality. You can get them back if you just cast it off the top. You can cast Find Finality and Wrath. And, Bond of Flourishing is one of the things that appears in these deck lists that is actually really good. It finds Citadel. It finds Hydro Crisis. Like, it does all the things Vivian would do without milling away your Citadel.
Yeah.
This is just a sort of bug version with a little more interaction, like Ravenous Chupacabra. I think probably the Abzan version's better, but in some matchups. But I think that having the Hydro Crisis makes the control matchups a little better post-board because you can just cut the Citadels if you don't want to deal with trying to resolve a 6-mana sorcery against a control deck and just sort of go for the duress, negate Spell Pierce plan against control post-board. So, yeah, this version's fine too. It just depends on your flavor choice, I guess.
Crisis is... Yeah, when I was first playing this bug version to try Citadel, I had it at one point a Crisis came up on top, and I wasn't sure if it let me pick X and doned me for that much, so I drug it off the top. You just lose 2 life.
Yeah,
and your 0/0 dies.
Yeah, but the thing is, it also keeps you healthy enough, long enough, and then this version's playing extra mana dorks to try and just ramp to either big Crisis or ramp out Citadel. So
yeah, you've got 2 kind of solid plans.
Yeah,
they
don't really work well together, which is a critique of this. But I think that this deck boards safely. Its sideboard plan is very good. So
one other note that's probably different in how you play this because the bug version has more mana dorks, has sort of more ways to hit its land drops or make mana. In the Abzan version, I found that I would lose games when I tried to hedge, there's a Jade Light on top and I have a Wild Growth, I'll leave it there. Bin basically everything that isn't a land or a Citadel because you need to hit your lands to cast Citadel. You're not actually playing that many. And Sorin, you want to bin everything and then draw Sorin and you can bring back what you want. So that's my advice.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but yeah, really fun deck. Citadel is also busted. It's very, very insane. I posted some pictures in the Discord of day one playing this deck when it was very first out on Arena, and people were just like, wait, what the hell is going on? Because I was, there were games where our friend Matt also played it where turn 5, he's at 90 life with a billion creatures in play. You know what I mean? And, you can go absolutely berserk with Citadel.
I've had games where I was popping off with Citadel, and I'm like, man, this is too much fun. If I get Wrathed, there's only 20 cards left in my library. I probably can't win, but this is awesome.
yeah, you got to actually kind of watch out for things like that. But no, Citadel's nuts.
You spend so long just casting things off the top of your library, gaining life, exploring, and then you're like, oh man, I have this huge board. They're dead. And you go to combat and only your Llanowar elf isn't summoning 6. Oh yeah.
But yeah, super powerful deck, super fun.
Moving on here, we've got a Grixis mid-range deck. This is taking advantage of some of the new powerful cards like Liliana and Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Also got a God Eternal Kefnet in here.
This was a list I got from a friend of ours, Ryan, and changed it a bit just to sort of add some cards that I liked. But it's just a Grixis mid-range, taking advantage of the powerful curve of Thought Erasure away your answer to Thief, play a Thief. If you deal with Thief, and then you get to discard off Bolas 4. If you deal with that, then Bolas 5 resolves. It just really attacks your opponent's hand. And many, many games, they end up top decking, and you eventually stick something that they can't beat through, with just top decking. So if you going at your opponent's hands with, flexible cards, Angrath is very good at going at their hand and also being able to kill things so that you don't die. Just standard take on mid-range. I think the biggest upgrade to this deck, though, was adding 3 Anticipates, because I found that, and I was playing a bit of Grixis discard last standard too. You're very good at ripping apart their hand early, and then it comes down to who top decks better. And games where your opponent does that better just by sheer chance, you'll lose. But Anticipate helps smooth out your early game, find if there's an answer you need, but it also is a better top deck than not Anticipate. So
True. Yeah.
Angrath's still also one of the best cards in response to a big old crisis.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
All right, you take $1 billion and sack it.
Or I got someone took my Thief of Sanity with Angrath. That's a beating.
That is a beating.
Because they get to take a card from you and then your thief dies.
Yeah, that's pretty hype.
Yeah, and then the sideboard is Duresses, Moment of Cravings you need because you kind of have to shock yourself a lot because like it's pretty mana, like color intensive deck. So against red, the moments help. There's a Carnival Carnage that there was more in the sideboard because at one point I had the main. I don't know. It's like picking off Llanowar Elves and such. And
yeah, you can pick off like spore creatures.
Yeah, you could probably cut it though. It's just there because I hadn't thought of anything else. Angrass Rampage is super flexible. It's in the main deck for the next list that Adam's been playing. Again, Davriel, like if you're playing against control, shines in this deck more than others because combined with Thought Erasure, Bolus 4, most people early game exile a card from their hand from Dragon God, and then you have Davriel and Angrath. Like there's just so much that they can't overcome all of these discard effects. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, normally Nexus can't discard cards if they have a Tameo, but like I've gotten lucky against them where you get to Thought Erasure the Tameo, and then they spend the rest of the game like casting Chemister's Insights and like Growth Spirals and Commence the Endgame, like trying to draw cards, and they still have 1 or 0 in hand because you just have so many effects. That's like the only way this deck can beat Nexus. Commence the Endgame in the sideboard to shore up your control matchups, and notably Enter the God Eternals relegated to the sideboard. I had a 2 main, and then 1 main, and then 0 main. It is insane if you're playing against creatures, but when you're trying to out top deck your opponent, having it be dead against Nexus and control was like unacceptably bad. Like you can't accidentally mulligan when you draw that card in those matchups, so that's why it's on the sideboard.
Makes sense. So this other Grixis deck we've got here next is more, I guess, more controlling, you'd say.
Yeah, this is like basically this is like close to pure control, right? Mm-hmm. This is, you're playing Aggro Bolus.
Yeah.
You're just trying to cast spells. Yeah, I literally just built this deck because I wanted to play Aggro Bolus and Angrass Rampage, because Angrass Rampage was a card that I felt was just never dead. And the one thing with this deck is like it made my Esper matchups all a joke. I never lost because it could just always kill their Teferis. They just couldn't find a way to stay in the game because you have more answers game 1 to Planeswalkers than they do have Planeswalkers and counter magic. They just don't have enough ways to stick a threat. They just can't win game 1.
Yeah, and you now have access to your own Teferi as well.
Exactly, through Bolus Dragon God. So it just, I killed an Esper opponent with just 3 Aggro Bolus post board match because he left in no removal because I didn't. Besides Vraska's Contempts, which he had to use on Ravager and Dragon God, and he literally just took 3. I played like turn 2 Bolus or Aggro Bolus, turn 3 Aggro Bolus, turn 4 Aggro Bolus, and just killed him with him. Like he didn't have a cast on. He didn't have anything left. So yeah,
it's really funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. This deck was really good against control decks. Post board against Nexus is fine.
Yeah,
you just really want to resolve on Mordigo. You just like Duress. It's actually quite good post board versus Nexus. Like you have a ton of ways to sort of interact with their hand. You're already like game 1. You have ways to interact with their hand. You have Sinister Sabotages. It's not great game 1. Post board, it's a lot better, but it's still not great. But it is very good against creature decks. This Grixis control deck will beat, I think, most Esper control most of the time. Like I think it's favored versus Esper control game 1. Post board, I also still think it's favored. And creature decks hit or miss, but post board you have Enter the God. Same thing. Enter the God Eternal is very good. So yeah, this deck I was actually really impressed with. It was really really good.
Cool.
Dragon God is just that card is bonkers.
It is the best fair card.
Yeah, it's the best fair, and it's crazy that we're calling that a fair card, but it is the best fair card in Standard now, I think.
Tameo might be better if she's used fairly, but
yeah,
she's not being currently.
Although the cards in this list are pretty close to some insane fair cards, let me tell you.
Yeah. So this next one is if 3 colors is a little too much for you, but you still want to do some Grixis stuff, you could play blue-black.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Grixis mana is kind of bad. You know what I mean? The spells it wants to cast with the cards it has available, like you're trying to cast Angrass, Rampage, Vraska's Contempt, Sinister Sabotage. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Ritual of Soothe. Like the Grixis,
it's really color intensive.
The Grixis mana is just bad. Like it just stinks.
There's definitely some hands you keep where you have like blue-red duel, black-red duel. Cards you can cast and then a Dragon God, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas this blue-black deck, I got the initial list, I changed a few things from Canadian Icon Phil Sams. I cut a few things to add Disinformation Campaign because I had a bunch more removal in it main, and I just was like, this is just going to lose to Nexus. We're already playing 3 Enter the God Eternals main, and Liliana Dread, Horde General, Ugin the Ineffable. All of these are just stone dead versus...
Yeah, it seems like you already have a lot of removal, so why overload on it?
Like, I'm just going to lose to Nexus and control mirrors, like, right? But the thing is, it's not as, like, unlike the Grixis list that we had, the sort of mid-range one Cam was talking about, where you're just stuck with these cards versus Nexus, like Enter the God Eternals. This is actually not a big deal because we're playing 4 Chemisters in sight. We can pitch cards. Dead cards, we have Search for Esconta. This is a way more pure control deck. I think this is probably one of the pure, like, quote unquote, like, purest control decks in the entire lists we have. This is like no win condition, right? Like, it's like 2 Kefnet, an Ugin, and a Liliana Dreadhorde General. That's it. And then otherwise we're just packing like cast downs, Tyrant Scorns, negates main, you know. But the thing is, the Disinformation Campaigns, which weren't in the original list, but I added them because I thought, well, 8 Surveil's enough that I'll get value out of them eventually. And it helps rip apart Nexus's hand, and we already have negates main and for Sinister Sabotage. This deck actually has an okay Nexus matchup game 1. And post-board, it becomes good, actively good. So I think this deck is actually one of the better lists if you're looking for a control deck. It has 2 Narset in the sideboard, 2 Davriel, Duress, Negate, Thief of Sanity. It's actually quite skewed, you'll notice, towards beating control and combo. Because I think that you don't need many cards for this deck to absolutely dunk on a creature deck. You're already playing 4 Vraska's Contempt main and 3 Enter the God Eternals. If you get to 4 or 5 mana with this deck versus like green-red, they're never winning.
I can see that.
They literally cannot win. Tyrant Scorn is actually an insane card in this list. Against like bug mid-range, you just like, don't care what they do. They can play as many crises they want. They're never winning. And Enter the God Eternals, as Phil described, is just Siege Rhino, right? So in the creature matchups,
Yeah.
it's just
more
the
like
second coming of Siege Rhino.
It's more like a Siege Chupacabra.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fair matchups, holy Christ, Liliana Dreadhorde General is...
Oh,
That card,
Holy man.
If your opponent's using the battlefield, Lily's going to win it.
Yeah, she's the Dreadhorde General.
Yeah.
There are games where I'm like, oh man, I'm really in trouble. Like they have 2 threats. I'm worried, and then I top deck Liliana. I'm like, oh wait, never mind. They just lose their board and now.
Yeah.
and now can never win again.
Oh, it was 2 mainboard Cry the Carnariums. This is the cut I made for Disinformation Campaign, and then 2 Moment of Cravings main, which I also cut because I felt like I just wasn't that much of a dog to aggro with Tyrant Scorn and Cast Downs already in the main. So those were the cuts. I had cut out 2 Cry the Carnarium and 2 Moment of Craving from the main for 4 Disinformation Campaign due to the amount of control and combo I've been playing against online. So if you notice the meta shifts, you can cut those for Cry the Carnariums and whatever. So if that's your thing and that's what you're worried about losing to. The sideboard I think is like pretty balanced in this sense, but Narset is actually a card that's quite also, because we can't play Teferi 3, we're a blue-black deck, right? In the sideboard. Narset actually quite strong versus Nexus as well. It's really annoying for them. They can't Chemisters in the same turn. They can't Grow Spiral for a card in the same turn. They can't opt for the same, you know what I mean?
It's really disruptive early. Like if they're already set up with Azcanta and Reclamation, like you're losing anyway. But early, when they're trying to just draw cards to smooth everything together, it's annoying.
It's really annoying, but also you just get to minus it twice versus them because they're not going to board pressure it. You just get to trade it for 2 negates basically, because it's going to find answers. You don't have any creatures in your deck. It literally just, you know what I mean? It's going to find non-creature, whatever.
Yeah.
Or instant sorceries or whatever.
Yeah, I really like Narset as a sideboard plan here.
Yeah, like I would prefer Teferi 3. It's blue-black, so I don't, you know what I mean? And then but I have Duress. So like post-board, you're looking at 2 Davriel, 2 Duress, 4 Thought Erasure. You know what I mean? And 4 Disinformation Campaign. You're not really worried. They're not going to have any hand. And then you just save your negates and Sinister Sabotages for anything else after that. But you just rip apart their hand very quickly. I never really had a problem with Nexus. This deck can beat Nexus. This is one of my enemy number 1. And I think a lot of our listeners, I think most people are going to be concerned about playing against Nexus. You should be.
Yeah.
It's very good. And so I had a really sort of skewed sideboard for control decks, because I still think Esper is also one of the best decks. Like we don't have an Esper list in this deck dump for obvious reasons, because it's like obviously the default nutty control deck.
It's like a known deck, and the upgrades and changes are pretty obvious. So
Yeah, but I think this deck actually is pretty good against the field. You know what I mean? This is like a pretty safe choice for a control deck.
Yeah.
Speaking of Narset, side note, I heard she's been stomping around in Legacy.
Oh yeah, man, shutting down brainstorms and ponders and stuff. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, think like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's not like people are like, oh, it's a new Leovold. Like, well, let's not get crazy here. Plus, Leovold doesn't see play anymore because Deathright's banned. So yeah, sure, I guess it can be Leovold. That's fine. No one plays it.
Yeah, moving on. We've got a cool deck here in the blue-green, like, creatures. Blue-green mid-range.
Blue-green ramp, come on.
Blue-green
Like,
ramp.
there's 4 growth spiral on this list. What do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I beat this deck, or I built this deck to beat Nexus.
Okay.
That's why it's and control.
These next 2 blue-green decks are sort of Nexus/control killers.
Yeah, this is a deck that I built to beat the field of decks I had seen and have a lot of game to it. Yeah, it's really good actually. I'm surprised how good this deck is. It seems like it's really cheesy. I'd probably go back up to I used to have the 4th Hydroid Crisis in the deck, and it should be there. I just wanted to play around with Zagana, to be honest. Like I just wanted to cast Zagana. Because actually you have a lot of guys with counters because it commenced the end game. The Amass guy has counters and Hydroid Crisis has counters. So I was like, maybe I'll draw some cards off Zagana. And I was having a really hard time with this deck against aggro decks. And then it turns out that mono red can't really beat Zagana either.
Yeah, she has 4 toughness.
Yeah, exactly. 4 toughness is a magic number against red, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but this deck, I have 2 negates main, which been really happy with. But it's basically a deck that's just trying to play a 1 or 2 drop, being Llanowar Elves or Merfolk Branchwalker or a Growth Spiral, and then just sit for a turn or 2 to see what's going on behind Frilled Mystic. And if it's a control deck, we have things like Commence the Endgame in this deck and Carnage Tyrants. So it's just trying to kind of gauge the field. If it's a Nexus deck, then we sort of just put some pressure down and sit behind Frilled Mystic and find a negate. Post board, you just can't lose because you just have a billion negates and Frilled Mystics and Spell Pierces. They can't do anything. Like the sideboard is Spell Pierces, negates, a Narset, 3 Thrashing Brontodons, also good versus aggro. There's a River's Rebuke for...
Thrashing Brontodon is so annoying against red. Like, again, 4 toughness, they can't get through it. And they can't really, like, tap out for their Experimental Frenzy if they're on that version.
Yeah. So River's Rebuke's in the sideboard for... River's Rebuke and Ugin, the Ineffable, are actually in the sideboard for green-red.
River's Rebuke's not a card I've seen in a while.
Dude, it's been a hot minute, hey?
Yeah.
But I kept losing to green-red with this deck, and I was like, not always losing, but I'd lose it often enough that I was like, I need something to like just deal with them having a big board. Because we'd fight for board, and then I would just lose to like them kind of getting ahead a bit. And then I realized, wait, if I River's Rebuke them and attack, and then I play a Tamiyo and minus and get back my River's Rebuke, can they ever win? And then, you know what? To answer your question, no, they can't. Because this is a green-blue ramp-ish deck that's playing 4 Tamiyo main. But to be fair, this is a fair Tamiyo deck. This is my sort of experimentation. Oh, before you post this, can you change my anger sideboard change to Wild Growth Walkers?
Yeah.
I was just mad about something. But I had Highland Game because I kept playing Wild Growth Walkers and getting them lightning striked, and then they never do anything. And I was like, well, I'm gaining life somehow. I want it no matter what. But yeah, you can just change it. But this deck, Mass Manipulation also was excellent out of the sideboard. But yeah, basically it's just a blue-green like ramp tempo beatdown deck. I don't know. Like how to
tempo beatdown.
Yeah, man. I don't know how to describe it. Like how would you describe it? Go back to the main deck. Let me what is this thing?
It's Aetherpunk.
Yeah, this is an Aetherpunk deck, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? Like, it's a weird deck.
It is a weird deck, but I like it.
Dude, it's actually really good. A lot of it, the reason why it's really good is, like, you can just play for, like, once you get to a point where the reason it has Growth Spirals, you want to just be able to Frilled Mystic as early as possible. That's part of it. But you also get to a point where you have, let's say, 8 mana in play, which is the sweet spot for this deck, because you can either Crisis for 6, which is the nut, right?
Yeah.
Draw 3 cards. Or you can play a Tamiyo and get back your Frilled Mystic and pass the turn, which is like, if the board's even, right? That's just game. Because from there, they play something into Frilled Mystic, you counter it, or they play nothing, you untap and start searching for whatever you want with Tamiyo. So that's sort of the way this deck was designed. I've literally never lost to Nexus playing this deck. I'm like 7-0 against it because they just can't deal with the Frilled Mystic pressure, right? Like there's too much going on and you just start rebuying negates over and over again. Like they can't Your Tamios you can pressure their Tamio. You're playing all the engines that Nexus has, but just no combo pieces. But you're playing creatures to be able to pressure them.
Yeah.
So deck was pretty fun. I'm pretty happy with it, actually. I think it has pretty good matchups.
Cool.
I would probably also add a Biogenic Ooze to the sideboard, but yeah.
Cool.
So this was a similar idea. Well, okay, so I didn't build this to beat anything in particular. I had been losing to similar like blue-green tempo decks in the previous standard and thought that Merfolk Skydiver looked interesting in it and it has some nice counter synergies. But turns out this deck also smashes Nexus. So it's similar to the previous list. It's just no consideration at all for the late game. I don't want to play late game. This is just...
You're way more low to the ground. Just get them dead.
Yeah, it's way more aggressive. And so like your green-red matchup isn't as bad because you can contest with them on board. Like your guys get pretty big. But yeah, this is just like Llanowar Elf, Pelt Collector, Growth Chamber Guardian, Crawl Harpooner, Steel Leaf Champions. Like you're just playing cheap, huge dudes, backing it up with Frilled Mystic for like the tempo play, and just looking to smash. And so like, it's actually, so like I built it just to think like the Zhang Yangu is in there as like this works well with Growth Chamber Guardian. It also like spreads around some counters just to make my guys bigger. I want to try it. It works with the same reason Skydiver's in there. Like it's good putting counters on Growth Chamber Guardian, but it's also just flexible putting those counters wherever, and maybe the Proliferate's good. So just put this together as like an experiment, and then pretty easily just 5-0'd through a standard league, like just kind of smashing people. They'd try and do anything, it would get spell pierced, and then they die. So it ended up being a lot better than expected. That's why it's on this list. There's cards in here that I don't even know if they're good because I was just smashing everyone. Evolution Sage, never really triggered it, never really drew it. So I don't know. That was another experimental card. Similar with Zhang, didn't really draw him much. But yeah, just smashing people. Sideboard, also, I have no idea what's going on. I didn't really need these cards. I just kept killing people.
Kazmina.
So Kazmina I put in there because I was playing Control, and I got absolutely smashed by a mono blue Flyers deck that boarded that in and cast it. And like I just couldn't interact with anything on their board fast enough. And the looting was big, and it makes a wizard and turns on their retorts.
Oh, that is pretty good.
So I figured I was also an aggressive deck with blue in it. So yeah, I don't know. The sideboard is, you can probably mostly ignore this. Feel free to do whatever you want. But yeah, this list has just been like surprisingly solid.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a weird world when green-blue is a playable archetype.
Yeah.
You know, just as
lots of like different variations on it.
Because
too.
green-blue just isn't like a good color combo usually, in my opinion, in standard. It just doesn't have removal. It doesn't have the ways to interact it should. But I don't know. A lot of it is Tamio, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, I'm not playing Tamio in this list.
Frilled Mystic does a lot too.
Frilled Mystic's also Mystic Snake.
Yeah. Like I think it's just the combination of having like Growth Chamber Guardian is a turn 2 4/4. Not exactly, but basically. Followed up by Steel Leaf is a turn 3 5/4. And it's that pressure blocked up by a counterspell that does 3 damage that is just good across the board.
Yeah, no, it's green-blue is surprisingly diverse and has a lot going on right now.
And like, yeah, the Merfolk Skydivers, just for a minute, like putting the counter on something that you've already played and giving it like 1 power of haste is good against the control decks. Putting it on itself, it flies over creature decks to pressure their planeswalkers. And also like in creature mirrors, you get to start proliferating. And all of a sudden your board's like 7/6s.
Yeah, when there's a Bard stall, it just ends the game.
And like I got paired against Gates, and like my Gates opponent, maybe they missed it, but I got to tick Vivian up to 7, play a Skydiver. The next turn, proliferate with Skydiver Ultimate Vivian, like a turn earlier than they were expecting.
Whoa, that is actually nuts.
So like, yeah, I don't know.
No, Skydiver is actually like, I'm not sure it's like standard, like.
I have never been unhappy to like have them in my hands.
Like in limited, it's bananas. It's like actually just insane. It's like it's. I would first pick this card in like Forest Blue Green. It's so good.
But like you have enough things that get counters on them. Growth Chamber Guardians, Pelt Collectors. If Zhang's putting counters around, like
yeah, no, I know. Planeswalkers, like just
that's really only it. So I actually don't have enough rare cards that I was willing to spend on this deck on Arena. So I was playing 2 Steel Leaf, 2 Jade Light, and so that also had counters. But yeah, I don't know. It just gets big enough.
Yeah.
Well, moving away from blue green now, we've got our first red white deck. I've seen a lot of this is a Feather the Redeemed aggro deck.
Yeah, there's lots of sort of different builds of this.
Yeah. Mostly focused just like Feather the Redeemed, Dreadhorde Arcanist, 10th District Legionnaire, and just 1 mana pump spells and removal
This
spells.
is just a heroic deck, man. You
Yeah.
love to see it. If we're, you know what I mean? If we're being honest, that's what this is.
So this is a deck that I wasn't sure quite how good it was because I'd played against it a couple times with like Grixis, and you just kind of kill everything and make them discard cards or what have you. And I haven't actually played this list. It's a list that our friend Matt posted at one point, and I changed 2 Krenkos that he had in the list for Gideons because that's the version I've been playing against. But I finally got paired against it I was playing mono red and just got dunked on. Like when you can't interact with like their board or you can't kill Feather, like I was impressed with like how much interaction this deck has. Like they were basically drawing 3 cards per turn, just like pumping their guys with Gird for battle, killing one of my guys with Reckless Rage, attacking with a Dreadhorde Arcanist, killing another one with Reckless Rage, and then like drawing those cards again. Like
Yeah, this deck can really pop off. Like it can do a lot. There's a lot of game to it, actually. It's I think one of those decks too that's kind of weird to play. It's a deck that has a kind of learning curve for how the games play out and how you have to play it.
yeah, it's a deck that looks interesting, and like when I have a surplus of rare wild cards, I might try it.
I also think Krenko is nuts, but
Yeah, I mean, Krenko plays nicely with the pump spells
yeah, that's why.
and could be better. I just haven't seen that version. I haven't played against that version, so
You've been attacked with like a 4-power Krenko yet?
No.
Dude, it's the worst feeling in the world. Like in a creature matchup, you're like, I'm dead. Like you just see like 4 things appear. You're like, oh boy.
never getting through those.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I just wait. And it's going to attack and do it again next turn to make more.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh God.
And this is another deck that I assume has a pretty good Nexus matchup just because like you get to go so quick.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can kill them really fast.
And Gideon Blackblade being able to, like, it takes up to 6 in time to hit either their search or a Wilderness Reclamation like on a critical turn and buy you enough time to kill them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's really important. Yeah, I mean, if you want to beat Nexus, you play mono white, mono red, or mono blue when you smork, or this deck.
Or the blue-green decks.
Yeah, yeah.
There's lots of ways to beat Nexus, let's say that.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't know because I never lost. But
This next deck here, we've got a green-white, just,
this is Oketra's Monument.
yeah. Green-white, a Catcher's Monument. We'll call it that.
Yeah, it's literally what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a deck I was playing to try and make sure I just could always ramp to and play Oketra as fast as possible. And if I have to, I'll Finale of Devastation to find her. Because she gets countered sometimes. And then just, if not, if I already have set up and there's a board stall, we just Finale and
Go get Ronus.
go get Ronus and kill you in one shot with a bunch of 8/4 tramplers.
Yeah. I mean, the base of this deck is just the classic Explore package, and then you have your big game-ending threats
I
up top
think
there.
it's like really threatening though.
Yeah.
Like I think in a lot of matchups, it's like really scary. I think the ability to just Finale for Ronus is actually like really, really, really good. This is something that have been meaning to explore for some time. But I don't know how to build it yet, and I've been trying. It's not on the deck dump, but I'll post it in the Discord eventually. I want to build something with Tameo, obviously, and Finale, and buying back Finale and keep going. And like, I'm not sure how to do it, and I feel like it involves something like growing rights of it.
That's going deep.
And trying to flip it and then trying to cast I'm not sure yet. I don't know. I don't know, but like
you
I'm
kind of
like,
lost me there.
yeah, I'm not sure what it is though. And like,
It's probably easier to flip Azor's Gateway than Growing Rights if you want a lot of mana.
yeah, I know, but
Well, you know,
but yeah, anyway, like the whole point of this deck is to play a turn 3 God Eternal Oketra, if you can, which is not that impossible.
You need 2 dorks, and you have 8 of them.
Yeah, you need 2 dorks and an Oketra, and if it resolves, sure. I mean, if they kill it, sure, it's coming back, and from there, just do whatever until you just cast Finale for 7, go get God Eternal Ronus and kill them in one shot, right? So, and it has interaction along the way. Like this is a deck I was pretty happy with actually. Like you just sort of ignore them and just play Oketra and just start playing guys, and then one shot them with God Eternal Ronus. Yeah, God Eternal Ronus is a card that I didn't explore as much for this deck dump, but I think has just an unbelievable amount of potential. Also, something I didn't note in the blue-black deck, the sort of pure control deck I mentioned earlier, by the way, that I just totally zoned out on, is playing 2 Kefnet main. Man, that card's, the body on that card is insane.
Oh, it's huge.
It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Of note, also, the body on God Eternal, Oketra, and Ronus is
Oh, they're also massive.
just unbelievable. But the rate on Kefnet is like just
it's phenomenal.
It's unbelievable. 4 mana for a 4/5 flyer is just actually nuts.
Mm-hmm. I've stuck in Oketra against green red, and they have like 5/5s and like 4/4s in play, and I'm like, oh yeah, like they can't attack into the Oketra. She'll just eat all of them.
Yeah, a lot of people like calling Finale like a bad green sun or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it costs 1 more, but
Yeah,
Doesn't
it
shuffle
shuffle
back
back in, but like with Tamio,
yeah.
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. But
There's
anyway,
something
I
there.
actually think there's something there in Modern for like Collected Company for like Absent decks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a legitimate thing once they like ban the Neoform deck. But like I legitimately think it has potential because like Green Sun, well, first off, Green Sun's banned in Modern, but Green Sun only gets green creatures, right? That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's like in Modern, man, that opens up a whole new world. I didn't like put as much work in the sideboard. There's not Knight of Autumns in the sideboard, and there should be in this list for obvious reasons as an enter the battlefield effect when you're playing Finale.
Mm-hmm.
But I just sort of built this deck as like a combo. You can also just like, go tutor a Lyra. Like I think Finale actually has like lots of potential in Standard.
Well, what's Court of Calling is a card as well that exists in Modern, which is,
yeah, it's pretty good, but it requires you to have a huge board presence.
yeah.
Like it's a 4 of in that deck.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if you would play a split on that card in that deck with Finale.
Oh,
If
yeah,
you're trying to do
you
that stuff.
could.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get other creatures. But yeah, so this deck's basically make an army with Oketra, cast Finale, go get God Eternal Ronus, and kill them in one shot. Which
It also like
is like a combo way to end in your fair deck. But this deck can play like a fair game very well. There have been green-white mid-range decks like this. And I think Finale gives you a lot of options, actually. Like to being able to just find, okay, I'm just always going to find a god to cast is very powerful. So
and in like creature mirrors, like Oketra solves these kind of fair decks relying on elves and incubation druids. Incubation druid not so much, but like Llanowar elves and dorks have this problem of like the board stalls out or they're playing a grindy mirror and they draw like Llanowar elves late. If that happens and you've tucked in a Oketra, like the fact that you can just wait and then use your Llanowar elves to make a 4/4, like it's really nice having Oketra in your library. Like it just solves that issue of like your 1/1 that you drew not doing anything.
Yep. All right, we got a couple sweet ones to end up the deck dump here. This first one is a Esper Super Friends deck.
oh yeah.
Playing Oath of Teferi. Got both Teferi 3, Teferi 5, Liliana, Ugin, Kaya, Dovin, Karn.
The whole gang's here.
The whole squad.
Yeah, it's the Gatewatch.
Yeah.
We're all hanging out. But only the Esper Gatewatch. Everybody else get out. Only the cool guys. Yeah, this is basically because of Oath of Kai, right?
Yeah.
Oath of Kai just helixing, and then I actually think there should be more. I can't believe I'm saying this. There should be more Dovin Grand Arbiters in this list because just having like cast down on 2, kill your guy on 2, play Dovin on 3, minus make a Thopter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now, okay, they attack my Dovin, I chump block, right? Next turn, I go, okay, play another Planeswalker or a Kaya's Wrath, kill your guy, minus make a Thopter, right? Then, okay, what happens? They play another guy, they attack, okay, chump with this Thopter, you take damage from the Kaya's Wrath, I gain life, right? Next turn, like play Teferi plus your turn. You know what I mean? Now they're locked out of the game already, and then I start activating multiple Planeswalkers per turn. Like it just reaches a point where, if you ever activate Oath of Teferi, it's over. Like if you have like 2 Planeswalkers in play and you cast Oath of Teferi and it resolves the game's over, you can't be like activating Planeswalkers twice a turn. That's way too much.
It makes sense that
That's
like
a lot.
Dovin is exactly what you need because like the power level of this deck is in having multiple Planeswalkers in play, but the best Planeswalkers aren't cheap. They cost 4 or 5. You also need a turn to cast Oath. So having something to bridge the mid game.
Yeah, that's why. But you have cast downs and Daughter Azures and stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's actually like I want to check with our friend Ben, who's also been playing similar Esper Super Friends. But you also get to cheat on mana. You're playing Interplanetary Beacon, right? So you can Teferi on 4.
Well, it's
No.
Oh, no,
No.
sorry.
It's one intact. It's just a filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. my
Just
bad.
makes your mana a little
Zoned
bit
out.
better.
Yeah. It's I played against like an Esper Super Friends deck with Interplanar Beacon, and they
Oh,
weren't,
yeah, right, because I had Tamio in before. That's why.
yeah, but they weren't entirely Esper. They like use Interplanar Beacon to cast a Bolus Dragon God.
Yeah.
That's a beating.
I took Tamio out, though, because I was like, this is too much.
Yeah.
I'm like too in love with this card. I got to cut it. So
And then the sideboard here it looks like a
it's like normal.
regular Esper sideboard.
Except for a Yawgmoth's Vile Offering.
And you got a lot of Planeswalkers kicking around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one card we had on our top 10 list from Dominaria that just never really did anything.
Yeah, it just asks too much because it's just
Yeah.
a dead card if you don't have it. But man, it's so powerful. You know, and then if my dumb Dovin sticks around because they're just busy Vraska's contempting, like this is the deck that actually gets to cast it, right? So
Yeah, it is a sweet card. Anyway, wrapping this thing up, we've got another take on a Prime Speaker Vanifar list. Good old rug pod. This one, new additions being Fibblethip. We've got some Vivian.
dude, Beowulf's the nut. You sack your elf and draw 2 cards. That's so nuts.
That is many for an elf.
That's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. This is another one of those cool little fun decks with.
Yeah, I don't think this is like hyper competitive, but it's
No.
still like good enough that it could probably win games. Like, yeah, I didn't do like super well with this deck, but I will say that sacrificing the gods when you have to with Vanifar is sweet.
Yeah. Just go back into your library. You can get them back with Vanifar at some other point.
Yeah.
God Eternal Ronus is another nice inclusion. Just a way to maybe kill your opponent immediately rather than like continuing to pod for value and hope that you stay alive long enough or hope that eventually kills them.
Yeah. The other thing is playing Vivian's over 3 drops. So I made the decision to not play 3 drops because I don't think they matter. I think the only thing that matters is getting a Rekindling Phoenix into play when you have Vanifar. I actually have played so much of the pod decks that like the only things you actually want to sack, because before you play like Jade Light Rangers and stuff, right? You don't sack your Jade Lights. Like you can't in Rug. Like what are you getting out of it? You know what I mean? Besides tutoring a Rekindling Phoenix. But like instead I wanted to play Vivian because of Flash so that I could end step Flash in.
Flash in Vanifar and start potting.
So it actually can do something. The other option is if you really want to like have a 3-drop to pot away, then you could cut the Vivians and play 3 drops. But I just never really came up for me as an issue because I always had stuff to do after that. So
It's kind of like
because you have a bunch of mana dorks and stuff that you can get rid of if you like 2 drops you can get rid of. But I don't think you want to get rid of your 2 drops. The 2 drops you have you don't want to get rid of. Besides Fibblethip, but like you already drew 2 cards off it, so you're good.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just never really wanted to, so I cut them because like the whole point to me was being able to start at the 4-drop chain of Rekindling Phoenix and then get either Siege Gang Commander or a Biogenic Ooze or Ronus. You know what I mean? You actually want to get usually Ronus and then go get a Carnage Tyrant or Multani and then sack Multani and go get like Palaka Worm, but yeah. It's pretty fun. Like I won a decent amount of games, but not a ton, like probably like an average win rate. I don't know. It wasn't like great.
That's about what I would expect from a pod deck in Standard.
Yeah, but that wraps up our deck dump here this time around. A lot of sweet decks.
I wish I had more time. I would have made a Bontu sack or like some deck with Bontu too. I think that like the one time someone cast Bontu against me, they drew 7 cards.
I played briefly at the beginning, just like straight black-white aristocrats, like Sorin, Cruel Celebrant, Priest of the Forgotten Gods, and had a Bontu in it. And I don't know, it was all right. Like, there's a couple games where it kills your opponent because like they don't block because you're attacking with 1-power creatures, and then you play Bontu and like sack your Cruel Celebrants and they just die. But I don't know. I think I deleted that deck when I put Sorin in Citadel because I was like, I don't want to play any other Sorin deck. This is my baby.
But yeah, to wrap up this episode here, we want to just give a shout out to all our patrons who have been sticking with us and supporting us. Your support means so much. And just shout outs to Tim, Thomas, Phil, Ursulus, Andrew, Aaron, Andrew again, James, Daniel, Jay Thomas, Hayden, Domingo, Rasmus, Tyler, Trevor, John, Mike, And then everyone else, we really appreciate the support. And to give back, like we mentioned at the start of the show, DWC Organizational coming May 12th, noon Eastern Standard Time. All patrons get free access to this tournament. If you yourself are not a patron yet, patreon.com/DWC Podcast for the low cost of $1, you can get into this MTG Arena tournament and win a box of War of the Spark.
Or other sweet prizes.
Yeah. One other thing to note, maybe you don't have a huge collection on Arena or you're busy that day for the tournament, and so you can't play, but you are someone who occasionally wears clothes. Our new stretch goal is for DWC t-shirts. So
yeah,
if you're a high enough tier patron, when that stretch goal is reached, we'll be making and sending out these t-shirts. So if you want some awesome DWC swag, check us out.
Yeah, anyone who's a $5 or over patron, we'll ship you a sweet DWC t-shirt once we hit the stretch goal. So
yeah,
and also if you're a newer patron and you haven't received any of our tokens or anything, contact us. I think we've mailed them to everyone, but all the patrons get the sweet DWC custom tokens. So let us know. We have some left, some sticking around, but I'm just gonna put in an order for some more actually because we ran out.
Yeah, if you're not a patron yet, there's literally no downside. What are you waiting for? DWC Podcast, patreon.com/DWC Podcast.
Yeah, and be sure to check out MTG Canada, proud sponsors of this podcast, and helping us out with advertising a bit for the organizational, which is really kind of them. Mm-hmm. So they're not really, they're just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. Great story. And check out articles on their website as well. Other podcasts like Commander's Brew. So
yeah, if you're in the market for some new War of the Spark product.
Yeah, you got to make these sweet decks we were talking about.
I got to go pick up. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I got to pre-order. I got to go pick up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap this up, though, with one question. What's your favorite deck from the deck dump we did?
My favorite deck from the deck dump?
Abzan Citadel. That's mine. Hands down.
I was kind of leaning towards that, but I'll go with something different because you chose it. I think I'm going to go with the Bant Nexus deck. I really like Teferi 3.
Yeah, that's fair. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bat Nexus deck, if you want to win the mirrors, and also it might be better. I still don't know about Anticipate, but
yeah,
the justification's for sure there. I think this deck's my favorite.
Which one?
The blue-black one.
Blue-black?
The blue-black, like kind of pure control-ish, Search for Escanta. Tyrant Scorn has been absolutely excellent. That it kills Hydroid Crisis is insane. This deck was probably my favorite deck.
Awesome. And yeah, if you missed it earlier in the show, all these decks that we talked about today are on our Twitter, Facebook, Patreon pages. Twitter.com/DWC Podcast, at DWC Podcast 1, and Facebook, the Disorganized Wizard Club Podcast. Thank you all for listening. However you listen to the show, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, make sure you leave a review, share the podcast with your friends. Everything helps this thing keep growing and bring it to new listeners. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you all next week.
Later.